Jonathan Drouin has informed coaching staff that he is ready to play center this year.
Oh.
So that's interesting.
In Montreal.
91.9 Sports or whatever, the French sports channel on radio in Montreal reported that today. And I thought that was interesting given the Kotkaniemi offer sheet. Now, we're not going to have any clarity on that, at least for us in this room, until what, Thursday? Is that how long they have? Is it a week to match?
At least. It is a week, yeah.
Why is
7 days.
First off, it should never be 7 days. What are they thinking? Make it 3. Make it really hard on them.
Oh, in the rules.
So yeah, to match and match a.
They want the team to have the option to explore all avenues. So you want them to be able to call all the GMs to seek out trades and see what the salary cap is. So 7 days is kind of
but from a completely competitive standpoint, fuck the teams. Am I right?
So
let's just go for it. Maximum chaos.
Well, also so the Habs, I believe, cannot afford to go into the season if they were to match. They can't afford to go into the season like this.
Mm-hmm. They'd be over.
What a shorter turnover or a shorter window to match would do is shaft teams who are, over the cap in the summer, like a Tampa or like a Montreal. So I don't know. I actually kind of like it.
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah, but
because you want to encourage.
But then
these.
nobody's gonna do it because then the GM's gonna be like, "Oh, you screwed me 2 years ago. Here's an exact copy."
Well, nobody's
of what
doing
you
it
said.
anyway.
Right. So
Waddell is the only guy who's done it.
Right.
Like him and what, Kevin Lowe. Like that's it.
No, there was the Vancouver Canucks and the St. Louis Blues traded offer sheets. I think it was David Backes and Steve Bernier.
Okay, but how long ago was that?
It was quite some time ago.
So if we're worried about teams not doing this, don't worry, they're already not doing it.
Yeah, that's true.
Right? And it was funny. Sarah Sivian of The Athletic tweeted out, she's like, we're trying to reach Don Waddell for comment on this, but he's literally at the rodeo right now.
What
so
rodeo?
He's at a rodeo.
Like John Dutton?
Yeah, literally like Yellowstone. And he's at a rodeo, so we can't reach him at the moment. We're going to have to wait a couple hours till the rodeo is done. Don Waddell, I know he does some weird shit, and I think that has to do with what the ownership group wants, but Don Waddell is kind of a G. Like, I love the way he's handling that.
I'm so upset.
What are you guys upset about?
Adam. Don. What a perfect opportunity to just respond, Sarah, this ain't my first rodeo. And he didn't?
Well, we don't know. We could always ask her, but I don't know if he responded that way.
I am furious. No.
So I'm curious about this situation. What's interesting about Kotkaniemi and Drouin is if you have Drouin under contract already, he wasn't, a part of things last year. Obviously, he took some time for his health, and that's great. So you have him coming back at $5 million, I believe he makes. If Drouin comes back and he can play center, your need for Kotkaniemi is almost. It drops. The hole that you're going to have to fill is Phil Deneau. But they couldn't afford him anyway at that price, or at least they said they couldn't. Although I think they had a comparable offer or something on the table. There was something that swung them down.
It was not far off.
It wasn't far off. So they would have made other moves to keep Philip Deneau. Kotkaniemi, if you have Drouin playing center, or at least have Drouin as a shot at taking center, I don't think you need to bother matching Kotkaniemi because the thing about this, and Jesse, you brought this up. We were talking about this a couple days ago.
I don't think they should do it anyway.
Well, okay, so Carolina signs him. Mm-hmm. What's the ramifications of that? Because there's a couple things.
Yeah, the 6.1 is important because if Montreal says, okay, we'll keep him, we'll sign him to the 6.1, that means the qualifying offer they offer Kotkaniemi next season has to be at least 6.1. But if Carolina gets him at this number this year, they can negotiate a new deal that's less than that.
And they can start that extension talk in January?
Yes. And Montreal can't trade him at all this season for this entire season until next off.
If they match, they can't trade him?
They can't trade him during the season.
For a year.
Why?
For 1 year, you can't trade a player. You sign the offer sheet to for 1 year. That's the rule.
He gets an automatic no move?
Essentially.
Yeah.
For this 1 year.
Yeah.
I don't
and
understand
it's not even
that,
like
though.
he could waive the no move. You just can't trade. It's the rules.
But that's a dumb rule. Why does that exist? Sorry,
Because
I'm asking the wrong guys. I'm sorry, but
I assume you're trying to
call Brandon Pridham. What the hell, man?
discourage teams from matching the offer sheet.
I see.
You want Montreal to be like, no, there's too many things going on. We got to sign him to 6.1. Mm-hmm. We can't trade him. So you want them to be like, okay, here you go, Carolina.
So Dom Lucian had him at because he's 20. We forget he's 20.
Man.
Yeah.
He could, projection-wise, be a lesser number one center. And I say lesser number one as in you're number one center in the NHL. You're still pretty good. But
in the
like,
future,
he could be like what a Matt Duchene is. Not your Austin Matthews or your Barkov or your, you know what I mean, like the best Connor McDavid, obviously not. But the best Jonathan Toews, all of those guys that are like the legitimate number one centers. He might be on the lower end of that, or more likely he could be like a third line guy at the end of this. That's what they're saying. If Carolina gets him at $6 million this year, which they can absolutely afford because God knows they did some crazy cap stuff.
And lost Dougie Hamilton.
You then, if you can pay Kotkaniemi 6, you can't pay Hamilton 9.
Listen,
that's a really good
That's
point.
a question a lot of people on Twitter were asking.
Yes, a lot of their decisions have been quite.
And the
confusing.
goalie they traded to Detroit,
Nedeljkovic.
Yeah.
But they got money for this.
Coaches had to beg to get paid.
Yeah, but they got money for this.
But they got money to just be like, hey, here's a meme.
Because it's Dundon. It all comes from Dundon. And
Yeah.
the rumor is like he was personally affronted by the Aho offer sheet. So this is him basically going,
but does he understand what Kotkaniemi is, and does that benefit the Canes?
Well, I assume...
I'm not saying that he's bad, but like they did scratch him in the Stanley Cup.
I assume his management team has at least enough sway to be like, actually, that's stupid, Tom. Mm-hmm. But they have organized this in a way that makes it smart enough. They're giving up a first and a third instead of what's the one up? A first, a second, and a third?
Yeah. They're just at the limit of the first and the third. Yeah.
And as Elliot Friedman pointed out on the 31 Thoughts podcast, something very smart. They would have already had extension talks. Or they would know what his long-term number is.
If you wanted him at 8 years or 6 years or whatever.
Right. So
it's going to be less than the 6.1.
So it'd be
Which
like
is hilarious.
3 or 4 million, maybe.
I assume.
Potentially less than 6.
If you can get a 3C now at 4 million, that's going to be worth a lot of money towards the end of the contract, especially if he's 20 or 21.
What about a contract like Nazem Kadri's when he signed it with the Leafs?
Bingo.
4.5.
6 times 4.5.
Yeah.
It's not wild. It's not wild, and Kadri was coming off a pretty dog shit season in terms of goal scoring, and
I also think there are certain players that just don't work under certain coaches, and you look at what happened with Thomas Tatar under Gerard Gallant.
yeah,
Like what a waste that was, right? Especially when what they ended up trading, like Suzuki and Tatar. Tatar was like, please take him. It wasn't a.
Oh, he was a dump.
Yeah, it was a cap dump. But maybe Kotkaniemi and Dom Ducharme are just not compatible. Like it seemed.
I thought he played well.
Now I said that. Yeah, I said the same thing in the Stanley Cup final. I was all over Ducharme about scratching him because I don't think Eric Stahl was any better.
No,
Not even close.
No, he was not good.
Like he wasn't. I know everybody loves Eric Stahl. I do too, but he's not. He's not even 2 years ago Minnesota Wild Eric Stahl.
No. I understood the role. He had a couple shining moments, but no.
Okay. No. So this will be very, very fascinating. And if Drouin is ready to play center, I mean, it's perfect timing that this would come out. And there are sometimes, not because I don't want the Francophone heritage, but there's some times where I wish, Montreal and Quebec all spoke English or we all speak French because there's so much gossip there that is in the French language. It just disappears in English. Like, imagine Toronto, the same sort of situation. We have our second line center who's 20 years old offer sheeted. And then this guy who hasn't been a part of the team for a while, missed the Stanley Cup run, says, I can play center. Like, that is chatter. You could talk about that.
And you remind me of a hockey Twitter phenomenon that drives me absolutely nuts. Is someone from like TVA Sport or something will tweet something. Mm-hmm. And someone in English will quote tweet it with, wow.
Yo, our buddy Julian McKenzie read the French thing, and that's how I saw it. That's how I saw the tweet. Is Julian's Twitter account. Yeah. He retweeted it and he was like, "Well, why does he feel that way?" or something like that. And I was like, and then I had to click the tweet, click translate. I have grade 9 French, man. I know how to conjugate a couple verbs. That's it.
Can you believe this? Well, okay. It's the first. First, let's see if the tweet contains the word fromage. It doesn't. Okay. So I'm
travailler, which is work.
That's work. I can do that.
And that's where, thank God for Renaud Lavoie, who can tweet in both languages. But and sometimes the translation even then is still a little lost. But
Pierre LeBrun with the quote tweet and just, oh, the plot thickens. And I'm like, does it? Does it, Pierre?
yo, how come no one talks to them about that? Do these people not have bosses that go, hey, you have an audience?
Maybe maybe the way people from Saskatchewan all wear Rough Rider stuff everywhere. Maybe that's their inside joke.